I've got to tell you, I can't keep it to myself any longer. I'm guilty.
The subject of homosexuality was actually prohibited in Hollywood movies because of the production code. It didn't mean that there were no homosexuals in films, but generally they were often coded.
You look through the history of Hollywood and you see gay subtext in all these old movies. It's just amazing to go back and watch The Maltese Falcon, and the guy's got his cane right in front of him like he's gonna suck it.
There were sissy characters who were usually just the butt of a joke. Gay and lesbian characters were really a product of how heterosexuals saw homosexuals. Stonewall was a bit of a turning point because it was the first time that gays and lesbians were standing up for themselves. The era of new queer cinema is something that sort of happened in the 1980s, where suddenly there was a sort of a boom in independently produced films, movies like Parting Glances and Desert Hearts, films that were getting a lot of critical attention.
You had filmmakers ripping it out of the studio's hands and saying, we're gonna go make this by ourselves on a $2 budget. I think that inspired a lot of really great filmmakers to just go out and tell the stories themselves.
On the same day that I got Brokeback Mountain, I got a script on Johnny Cash called Walk the Line, and it was directed by a former student of mine, James Mangold. And I read both of the scripts, and I said, I want to do Brokeback Mountain because I think the story may not be better, but I think that the story should be told.
When you think about it, Hollywood cinema is one of our country's biggest cultural exports. There are places in this world that only know about America based on the Hollywood movies that make it to their local cinema. And to have representations of us actually sometimes back up those outdated and very bigoted ideas is a rather disturbing thing, that Hollywood could be complicit in actually supporting some of those notions.
We as a society are shaped by media today. And making sure that queer stories, LGBT and Q stories are out there for everyone to see is incredibly important if we want to be understood, if we want to have rights, if we want to be protected, and even if we want to understand one another within the LGBT community.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of studio interference when you're making a movie. You know, it's not just like, okay, here's 30, 40 million, $50 million, go make your film. That doesn't really happen so much anymore. And there's no guarantee that those are the people who are necessarily going to be making things that are necessarily socially conscious.
A couple years ago, we came up with something called the Vito Russo test. It relies on 3 simple questions. The first is there anyone inside the film that is identifiably gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender? Is that their only defining characteristic? And thirdly, if you were to take them out of the narrative, would that have any effect on the story? It's shocking to see how rarely those 3 boxes get checked in terms of LGBT characters being depicted in mainstream Hollywood film. One of the more surprising pieces of information that we got out of last year's report in 2014 was that the Hollywood studio Paramount only had 2 films come out of its main sort of studio wing that contained representations of LGBT people. In this case, they were both of gay men. It was the film Pain and Gain and also The Wolf of Wall Street. In both cases, you had these films depict gay men as sort of sexually perverse. On the one hand, you had one trying to hit on The Rock while he was doing some sort of yard work. On the other hand, you had a guy hosting an orgy in his boss's apartment. In both cases, they got beaten up on screen for what had happened.
The reality is they operate within a capitalist system. They're not thinking about what they're doing in terms of how are we contributing to society.
Do I think that's acceptable? No. Do I think it's a bit of reality to business at the moment? Yeah.
This is one of the reasons that independent cinema has definitely been probably the most fertile ground for LGBT filmmakers to find their own voice and to create representations of the community that they were not seeing in mainstream media.
We are the storytellers. We're the keepers of the culture. right now. We have to do it ourselves. We can't wait for Hollywood to tell our stories.
Part of the reason why I do what I do is that I want to be part of seeing us represented on the big screen more often and in more authentic ways.
When I made my first feature, I had no idea how much work it was. I always had to work hard. I never had, my family didn't have a lot of money, and if I wanted to buy stuff, I worked for it. So today is my day off from filming, and so I'm off to doing a bunch of meetings. First, I'm meeting with my production designer, Allison, who's gonna help me convince my friend Tom, whose house we're shooting in, that we can make some changes to it. We're gonna be in there for 6 days, and we're shooting this thriller, so we want it to be, the walls to be darker, and his house is all white, so we'll see what we can do.
Be on the second day, or the rooftop, that's gonna be on the second day. It's just a few actors up there. And then we will look that way, what color?
When you're filming, there's a lot of challenges all the time coming up, and being the director, you kind of have to just really stay focused and just always be alert and always be ready to handle everything that comes up. When you're on set, you're constantly being asked questions, is that the right shirt for what he's gonna wear in the next scene? What about his hair? Do you like this angle? All these things are happening all at once as you're trying to direct a scene.
Kiss Me, Kill Me is a murder mystery crime thriller set in West Hollywood that I'm directing. Me and David Michael Barrett, who wrote the screenplay, both feel that the fact that our characters are gay is a secondary aspect to the story.
It's very challenging to do a small film like this. We are sort of approaching it like we're doing a $2 million film, even though we have just a tiny fraction of that. And with doing a movie this small, there's a lot of challenges that show up, but it seems to be happening, and we're very happy with what we're getting. What's really exciting to me about this movie is it's kind of a leap forward in that regard, in that it's not about coming out or sexuality. It's just characters that happen to be gay, and it's in this gay world of West Hollywood.
I am a gay filmmaker, so it's obviously going to influence my work. I want to see representations of gay people in media because I know how much it meant to me when I was a kid growing up.
It's important to see ourselves as a culture on screen. I was a little gay kid in Missouri, and seeing a gay character in a chorus line just blew my mind.
I mean, I knew it was gay.
And really helped me come to terms with the idea that I was probably gay, and that there are adult characters going through what I was going through. It helped me feel, for lack of a better term, more normal.
The purpose of a film is to capture your audience, to move your audience, and as a documentary filmmaker, it really is important for me to enlighten and educate. I mean, that's the beauty of filmmaking, and that's the magic of filmmaking, and that's the challenge of filmmaking.
It's very hard to make a lot of money back on a film. You can't really find investors, and without investors, of course, you can't make a film unless crowdfunding comes into place.
Of course, we didn't know when we started the campaign if we were going to be successful, but we prepared for it for 6 months, including doing all the casting as we figured that would help the campaign if we had cast members and that had fans that were excited about seeing them in this film.
Hi, I'm filmmaker Casper Andreas. I directed films like Going Down in La La Land, Violet Tennessee's The Big Musical.
And I'm David Michael Barrett. I wrote and produced a movie called Such Good People, and another one called Bad Actress.
We are now working together on a feature film called Kiss Me, Kill Me. Unfortunately, Hollywood studios are not funding these sort of, gay murder mysteries.
But that's not going to stop us. We are going to make this film with your help.
In the crowdfunding model, you as a filmmaker can pitch your campaign online. People can watch your pitch all over the world and give freely. Money that comes in from all over translates into direct dollars for making the film. But on top of that, it creates a community around your film before it has even been made. An audience is beginning to be built, which is a very powerful part of this way of financing films. At first, our campaign started off slow. and we didn't know if we would meet our crowdfunding goal. But as time went on, we started gaining momentum and building a following, and thankfully, we met our goal.
It's like those cave paintings where somebody thousands of years ago stuck their hand in some red ochre and then put their hand on the wall of a cave. They wanted to leave something behind that says who they were, that they were here, that they mattered, that they existed.
Technology has kind of caught up enough that the medium itself is available to more people at a cheaper amount of money. So that kind of democratization has led to a lot of new voices that we haven't really seen proliferate before at this rate.
I made my own series called Eastsiders. Shot the first few episodes on an absolute shoestring budget of $1,500, and then we put the first 2 episodes online, and there was a huge reaction in the press, particularly the LGBT press, and people really seemed to resonate with it, which led us to launch a crowdfunding campaign.
Hi, my name is Kit Williamson, and I'm the creator, writer, director, and producer of Eastsiders, the series. We are so grateful for the opportunity to keep this story going, and we hope you enjoy watching it.
I think it's so amazing that LGBT films have found an audience on Kickstarter, because what more proof do you need than people's willingness to pre-order and finance a movie, that there's an audience for it? You know, we may not have the attention of studios and networks, but we do have an audience that's willing to pay for the content and willing to pay for it before it's finished. They're willing to be early adopters and invest in ideas.
There's a lot that wouldn't have happened to me had I not been able to put myself out there on the medium of YouTube and online video. Just yesterday, someone in Canada messaged me about how they were, going to give a presentation to their class on gay rights, and they were using 2 of my second-class citizen promo videos to do that.
I want to know what it's like
to open your eyes so you can see
the way this world is supposed to be.
Moments like that, it's like, I'm really glad I did that.
I want to be somebody that can make somebody's life a little bit easier when they find out they're gay. Like, what greater fulfillment is there?
So the very first thing we're doing today, we're going to film at the hospitals. It's just a hospital patient room where our lead actor wakes up after having been shot, and I'm actually playing the doctor. So that was another thing I worried about last night, was learning my lines.
We're going to start down here on this first floor today, inside this set right here on the left in the hospital. Then we're moving upstairs into a conference room.
A film like this is a passion project. No one gets paid a lot of money. You have to make it with people who are really willing to work very hard for very little, and who are willing to go to the distance, because otherwise it wouldn't be possible. Our budget is tiny for what we are attempting to do, so it's a lot of stress for everybody, but at the end of the game, I'm hoping we're making something that all of us can be very proud of.
Is camera speeding?
Yes. One echo, take one mark.
So this is the shot.
Yep. Okay, let's let it.
So I'll do 2 when I look into the camera, and then I do 1 when I'm looking a little bit off. Where should I look off if I look off? The lens?
No, I think you're looking. I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Ready, set, and action!
Hi there, I'm Dr. Winters. How are you doing? There was an incident. You're at Cedars, but you're going to be okay. Was that good, everybody?
One time? Are we doing one more time?
I think one of the things that is most often overlooked is how the community comes to understand itself. Just because we define ourselves as an LGBT community doesn't mean we understand one another. We have really different experiences. Me, as a white gay male, I don't necessarily understand the trans experience, nor do I understand what a young African-American male might go through in his coming out process. Films, media, videos, television really allows us to see what other people are going through, and we relate to them better. We understand them better. And once you have that intimate experience of somebody else, you can't help but be changed.
I play a drug dealer named Travis who might have his own motivation for staying close to the ingenue, played by Van Hansis, who I worked with previously in Eastsiders. Casper Andreas is directing, whose movies I've seen for years and years and years. He's really been a trailblazer in terms of distributing LGBT content and financing feature films. It's amazing to see what he's done and how he's using crowdfunding now to help supplement his budgets because the indie film market has changed so much from when he started making movies 10 years ago.
This project had an amazing support from not only the, I would say, actors, fans, but also the director's fans and a big social community who want to support queer film. I think this movie would never have been made without that huge support from everybody around the world. The next step for LGBT films is to really not only cover the coming out process, but also go into subjects that would normally be more of mainstream film. I think that's why this film will make a difference.
And are we ready? Camera set. And music. And action.
There's so many people struggling with their sexuality, not just in the US, of course, but around the world. And to have these images out there is, I think, is such a positive effect on those people and also on our straight allies who gets to know us better, and of course on the world as a whole. Putting out images of gay people doesn't always have to be positive images, I don't think, but it has to show that gay people come in all colors and all kinds of people.
We have a lot more work to do. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's way better than it used to be. It's not nearly where it needs to be.
The hunger for seeing us represented in this specific way by these specific voices is still present. My chief hope is that every person in this country feels that if they need to see themselves reflected on screen, they know where to look.
My hope for the future of LGBT films is that we just merge into a world where people who make good films get to get it out there and get it seen.
A general audience can look at that authenticity and be connected to it and eventually be moved by it. That, I think, is incredibly important.
The important thing is that we are living in a time when we are the creators. We can create, and we have the opportunity to build the world we want to live in. We can make the films we want to see. We can have the rights that we want to have. We can work together to achieve the things we want. I do think that at some point, you're going to look back at your life and feel like, why didn't I go after my dreams? If you have a desire to do something, if you have a dream of something, you also have it in you to achieve that dream.